A beloved South African actress is shattered by the brutal murders of her mother and elderly grandmother. But the horror doesn't end with their deaths. Behind this tragedy lies a betrayal so deep that it cuts through the very fabric of what it means to be a family. This is the story of Gladys Manku and Letima Phuthuma. Let's get into it. Amanda Manku, best known for her role as Dr. Elizabeth Tubachali on Skeem Saam, rose to fame as one of South Africa's most promising and beloved young actresses. But behind her career was a deep-rooted connection to her family, especially her mother Gladys and her grandmother Leti.
Yo bona ke mang le mang? Yo bona ke mang le mang? Ba bona go kwela ka tsoga marata. Just snap a grown. One she just snap.
Amanda was born in Machopong village, not to be confused with Mokgopong. Machopong village is in Zibidiela in the Limpopo province, also known as ZB. Amanda says that when she was born, both her parents were teenagers, with her mother having only been 15 years old and her father about the age of 19. She says that when she was 5 years old, her father moved to Pretoria to take up a police officer position after he had completed his police training. At the same time, her mother had been completing her matric. She says that because she had turned 5 and was about to start school, the family decided that Amanda should move to Pretoria to be with her father, where she can go to good schools. And as soon as her mother completed matric, she joined the two and they lived as a family. The couple then had 4 other children, with the last 2 being twins. So all in all, they had 5 children. However, they did not spend much time in Pretoria, as her father quickly rose through the ranks of the South African police services, and he got promoted and moved to Sandringham Police Station, where he ended up as a police captain. Sandringham is a suburb in the city of Joburg municipality. It is in the area of Edenvale and your Lyndhurst and those areas. So the children all went to school around that area, although Amanda says that although they grew up in Joburg, their parents ensured that they did not lose their connection to the Limpopo province and their heritage. She says that every school holiday, they would visit Zibidiela and spend the entire school holiday there, which ensured that they retained their traditions and, of course, their Sepedi language. When Amanda was very young, she expressed an interest in being an actor, and she says her father, whom she describes as an incredible father, whom she also says was one of her best friends. He personally went to the SABC building in Auckland Park to inquire about getting her into acting, and that would be the catalyst that leads to a chain of events where Amanda ends up on YoTV. This would have been after the Sly Tobachali, Kali Fields, Sisi Ravere era of YoTV. But she breaks into YoTV and then later finds her way into prime time on Skeem Saam. At the beginning of May 2021, Amanda's mother Gladys, who was 45 years old at the time, had been visiting her mother in Zibidiela when tragedy struck. It was in the early evening of the 4th of May 2021 when Amanda's mother, her grandmother, and uncle walked to a nearby communal water tap to fetch water. This is an everyday type of routine in most villages in the Limpopo province and indeed the rest of the country. So nothing weird about what they were doing there. While they were out, another one of Amanda's uncles was in the house, and two men walked in to ask to speak to Amanda's grandmother. They stated that they were there to fix a wheelbarrow and would like to see the elderly woman. The uncle then called Amanda's mother on the phone and wanted to speak to Amanda's grandmother, explaining to her what the two men had wanted. The grandmother's response was very eerie because, according to the uncle, she said that she did not know anything about men coming to fix a wheelbarrow. And she even said to the uncle, "Tell them to go. What if they are there to kill me?" Amanda's mother, on the other hand, took the phone and said to the uncle, "No, tell the men to come tomorrow. It is a bit too late now to be coming to fix a wheelbarrow." So the two hang up. And directly after the call, now these are accounts from the uncle that had been with the two women to fetch water. He says that as soon as Amanda's mother hung up with the other uncle, she received another call. This time, the call came from Amanda's father, who wanted to know where Amanda's mother was. And she said, "Oh, I am with my mom. We are in the street fetching water." And Amanda's father, William Manku, said to her that it was a bit too late to still be in the street fetching water and they should turn back and go home. They can finish the errand the following day. As the two women and Amanda's uncle were walking back, this is once again according to the uncle, they saw a car parked on the street with a Mpumalanga registration number. The three of them thought the car was suspicious, and this is probably because they were already on high alert after the wheelbarrow story. So the uncle says that the women even said that, "You know what, when we get home, we need to blow the whistle and call the entire community to tell them about the suspicious car so that we decide what to do about this." Not long after that, they encountered two men in the street who pointed guns at them. The two younger people, Amanda's mother and uncle, ran in different directions, while one gunman shot the helpless 71-year-old Leti Maputuma, execution style, hitting her first on the leg and then the chest, killing her. The other gunman ran after Amanda's mother for a distance, and she would later be found in the bushes, shot and killed. The killers also took Amanda's mother's cell phone, perhaps in an effort to cover their tracks. This cell phone becomes important later in the story. But for now, the uncle that had been with the two women managed to get away. The deaths, of course, sent shockwaves through the village, as you can imagine, and indeed through the entire nation, as Amanda's fans and the public mourned alongside her. At the time, there were no leads and no suspects, and seemingly no reason or motive could be given for this horrific attack. Police opened a case of double murder and attempted murder. There was even speculation that the attack could have been a robbery gone wrong, or maybe it could have been a planned hit, but investigators kept quiet about it for what seemed like a long time. Amanda's grief was visible, but at the same time private. She would later speak about how angry she was at God, saying that she didn't understand why her mother and grandmother had to die in such a brutal manner. also saying that the fact that the two women were taken at the same time, the two women that she loved and relied upon so much, she felt lost in this world, because if they had taken her grandmother, she could have gone to her mother to cry. If it had been her mother who had died, then she could have gone to her grandmother. You know, she also said that because her mother had her when she was so young, her grandmother also became pivotal in the role of raising her into becoming the woman that she is today.
How did you deal with the loss of your mom and your grandmother while navigating through motherhood?
I didn't deal with it. I died. I think the day that they passed is the day that something died in me, to be honest. I won't lie. My mom had me when she was 15. So my mom was my friend. And then my grand was my mom. You understand? So when both of them, I was angry with God. I was angry for the two women that I know were God-fearing. Thapelo is at the center of their lives. How do they depart from my life? And in the nature in which they departed.
And as the eldest of 5 children, she says that she took on the role of being a mother to her siblings. The twins, who are the youngest of her siblings, were in matric that year, and she says that she had to prioritize their healing over herself. The case was seemingly cold for a couple of years. Amanda even got married without her mother and grandmother by her side. But the truth was only beginning to surface, and it was worse than anyone could have imagined. In January 2024, nearly 3 years after the murders, police arrested 3 suspects. And to everyone's shock, one of them was Amanda's father, 53-year-old William Mangu, who was arrested at his workplace at Sandringham Police Station. He was arrested alongside his 42-year-old mistress, Linden Police Sergeant Nonhlanhla Ngubo. However, she was not arrested at work. She was arrested at her home in Lenasia South. The third person arrested was 40-year-old David Khoza, a Mozambican national who was allegedly hired as one of the hitmen. Khoza was actually arrested at the Lebombo border, about to exit South Africa into his home country of Mozambique. It is not clear what happened to the other alleged hitmen. The 3 accused were charged with 2 counts of murder, a count of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, robbery with aggravating circumstances, and defeating the ends of justice. You remember the cell phone of Amanda's mother that was taken upon her murder. Investigators were able to tie one of the suspects to that cell phone, although much of the investigations have not been made public, so it's not known who they ended up finding the cell phone with. In addition, they also found the VW Polo that had been used during the murder, so the same vehicle that had the Mpumalanga registration number that was there on the day of the murder was also found and tied to the accused. But it was the court proceedings, which were initially at Leboa Kgomo Magistrate Court before being transferred to Polokwane High Court, where a very horrifying picture was painted. According to the state, William Mangu had hired Khoza to kill his mother-in-law and his wife. In his own affidavit, submitted during his bail application, William admitted to directing the killers to the house of his mother-in-law. He even indicated that He had driven in his car from Joburg while the hitman drove in the VW Polo, and the two of them convoyed to Zebediela. When they got there, before they got to Mahopong village, he left his car somewhere and got into the VW Polo with the hitman, and they drove to the house of his mother-in-law. They parked outside, and he showed them his mother-in-law's house, and they drove him back to where his car was. He got in his car. The killers drove back to finish the job. He also admitted later that they had called him to inform him that the job was done. So he made this confession in his affidavit. As the investigation unfolded, details of a pattern of abuse in the relationship of Gladys and William would emerge. During William's bail application, the state opposed his bail, stating that there was a history of domestic violence, and if William got out on bail, he could interfere with the case. They indicated that in 2020, just a year before the murder, Gladys Mangu filed a protection order against her husband. The document cited alleged abuse and threats, including concerns for her safety when she was applying for the protection order. I'll tell you about his second bail application a bit later and the reasons he cited for wanting bail. The protection order, though, which is now viewed in hindsight, raised serious questions. Was Gladys trying to escape a violent marriage, perhaps? Was she planning to leave him? While no formal confirmation exists right now, or could it be that he saw his mother-in-law as a threat to his own relationship with his wife and his marriage? Because it is very surprising that his mother-in-law was not killed because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was part of the target. He wanted her dead. In September last year, Amanda sat down with Mapaseka Mokwetli, whom you might know as Dintle on Scandal. The two sat down to discuss Amanda's life, her acting career, and the tragedy. And in that interview, she spoke about how heartbroken she was that her father, a man that she grew up loving and admiring so much, could have done something like this. She spoke about how she had been raised in a loving home with two parents that cared and loved each other, and it was very painful for her that the two people that she loved the most were taken from this world, allegedly by someone that she also loved and cared for so much. She also stated in that interview that her parents were each other's first love, and it just occurred to her that the devil does not like beautiful things. This is how something as beautiful as her parents' love story can end like that. However, this year in 2025, in April, she sat down with Thobela FM's Manguku Baby for an interview on Thobela FM's YouTube channel, where she seemed to have gone through a change regarding what happened. She stated that she was not there when the unthinkable occurred, and therefore she could not say exactly what happened. She could not give her opinion on what had occurred, further stating that just because people are suspects and have been arrested does not mean she must be the one to judge them. And if certain people are indeed guilty, they would be found guilty in a court of law. Also stating that her father was a good father. She had been raised by him in a loving home, reiterating essentially what she had said in that interview with Mapaseka, except that this time she's not saying, I'm hurt that my father could have done that. She's saying, I don't know what happened. I was not there. And Mankuku further asked her about the court proceedings to say, even though you were not there and you don't know what happened, what is being said? What are the allegations that are being laid out in court against your father? And she has stated, this is Amanda, has stated that she has not been to any of the court proceedings, a decision that probably she has made in order to protect herself. However, once again, she reiterated in that interview that her parents had a beautiful marriage and the devil does not like beautiful things.
ba gago kore ke bile ke bona o miemela go tshwana le ka mokgwa o miemelang go bolela ka monna wa gago e bontšha le batho ba e leng gore ba be ba ratana go iputša gore ka ba go tsene eng ka gare ga bona go diragalang.
No, nna batswadi ba ka papa ka mama ka re gotse ga botse batswadi ba ka be le bakgotsi ba ka papa ka be le mokgotsi ya ka fela re tla reke Saturday a rate dwe botse bathata le ba diagetse nka se bone mang molato ka gore go jwale ke di-case ke ding tse leng gore di a diega nka se bolele mang gampe nka se re ka gore ba re mang o swerwe mang o dianye
o ka se
ahlole and particularly because nna le ge ba ka re o tlo ahlola mang a gona nka mahlolang ka baka la gore nna batswadi ba ka bang
The stories I tell on this channel are heartbreaking. However, you might like my storytelling style and want to see more videos from this channel. And therefore, I ask that you like this video. That is very helpful to the channel. I also would like to encourage you to consider subscribing if you have not subscribed to the channel yet. After William's first bail application was denied, he once again applied for bail with new reasons for the court to consider. He stated that when he was arrested in January 2024, he was undergoing initiation to become a traditional healer, a Sangoma. And because of his arrest, he had to stop the initiation abruptly, which was not protocol. And he stated in his bail application that as a result of that, his ancestors were not giving him sleep. And once or so a week, they were visiting him to threaten him that if he did not go back to initiation school, he would either go mad or they would come to take him. This was surprising for me because I thought if his ancestors were tormenting him, they would torment him for killing their Makoti. But, they are tormenting him for allegedly quitting initiation school. He also stated that when he started initiation to become a healer, he was having problems with his health. In particular, his legs were ailing. However, once he started the process, he became healed. And now that he was in prison and unable to continue with his initiation, his leg problems had come back to him. Further, he stated that his children, his younger children who were not working, were struggling so much that they were begging for food from neighbors. Another mitigating factor for why he should be released was that he stated that one of his younger children was having mental health problems and needed his father. The state, on the other hand, opposed his bail once again. Police investigators testified that an attempt had been made to derail the investigation. According to a key witness, a fellow police officer. Someone had been offered 1 million rands. They had been told that if they can make the docket disappear, they would be paid 1 million rands. And so the state opposed bail, stating that if he were released, he could derail the investigation. And once again, his bail application was denied, and Manku had no option but to resign from his job as police captain as he was awaiting trial. As of early 2025, Manku and Khosa, his other co-accused, remain in custody. Manku has been denied bail, as you are aware of, and Khosa abandoned his bail application. It is, although, very unlikely that he would have been granted bail as a Mozambican national who was caught at the border trying to get into Mozambique. However, the charges against William's girlfriend, police officer Nonhlanhla Ngubo, who was also initially implicated, have been dropped. It is not clear what the police initially had to tie her to the crime and what happened that led them dropping the charges against her. The trial, which began earlier this year, is currently underway in the High Court in Limpopo's capital. It is expected to wrap soon, and hopefully there will be a verdict in the coming weeks. The motive for these murders, you ask, no one knows up to this day why allegedly Manku would have orchestrated the hit on his wife and mother-in-law. The family and the Machopong community now looks towards the court system, hoping that justice will bring closure and accountability. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.